These next few years of my life are when I was at my lowest, not only in disposition, but also in power. I wasn't allowed to do my usual business of taking souls and tormenting them, so I was left to mess around with Renee. This got boring very quickly, especially since there was so little room in Horror Hills. I found myself spending most of my days sleeping beneath one of my palm trees or in a cave opening that I dug. In the meantime, the inhabitants would often bother me. Majin and Piracy were especially close friends, so those two would often come around and see what I was up to.
Hey, Lord X, you sleeping on the job again?
He's an old man, so he's always sleeping. Ha ha ha!
Go bother someone else, you oversaturated gumballs! I didn't feel welcome in the world that used to be mine. It was disheartening to see what had once been my greatest achievement was now overrun by Xenophanes' colorless zones. It only made my resentment towards all the Dead Zone residents grow more and more, and out of control. One day, a new resident came to the Dead Zone. Naturally, Majin and Piracy found them first. They gave him the name Centipede because of his second form, which they discovered to be a massive centipede-like creature with the arms of his victims. Despite having terrifying potential, Centipede was empty-headed. He had little to no memory of who he was or what had happened to himself, so he was easy pickings for someone like me. Xenophanes and the others got on my case for picking on Centipede, which didn't help my reputation with them. We later found out that Centipede was a former victim of Xenophanes', and he has an X scar across one of his eyelids as a result. Before I continue, let me briefly educate you on Xenophanes' X scars. If he makes a wound in the shape of an X, he can control that scar to a certain degree. Since mine is across my chest, he can immobilize me entirely by making it feel like it is on fire. For Centipede, since his wound is on his head, he had trouble remembering his past. That is, until he finally did.
I remember. Xenophanes has a weakness. I know how to kill Xeno!
Xenophanes sensed this and went into a panic. He wiped Centipede's memory again, fled to Planet Freedom, and there he began seeking out and collecting the Shadow Emeralds, killing anything in sight along the way. We tried to mobilize and stop him, but he set my scar alight before any of us could move. The Piracies stayed behind to help me, surprisingly, and the burning only stopped when Xenophanes lost his focus. Without a red ring to get to Planet Freedom, we searched the Dead Zone for another way out. Xenophanes' victims, Soul Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, led us to an underground ruin beneath Hill of the Void. In this ruin were murals that described the three victims and how they can be used as a sacrifice in order to summon a red ring. I remember Piracy getting shocked by something here, but I didn't think much of it at the time. The soul victims stood on their respective pedestals, and with their last breaths, their soul energy summoned a red ring. We were able to get Majin back thanks to this, for he was trapped in his own zone until this time. After getting him back, we made haste for Planet Freedom. Once we arrived, we found out that our friend, Professor Ferdinand Prower, had taken Fleetway and Metal Sonic to try and stop Xenophanes in his tracks. Unfortunately for them, Metal Sonic was destroyed in the fight, and Fleetway was fatally wounded. We found them in a crater. Metal Sonic was nothing but a scrap heap, and Fleetway was clinging on to a Chaos Emerald like his life depended on it. Even Prower had an X scar on his wrist. With all of us in one spot, we made a plan to take down Xenophanes once and for all. We took the weakened Fleetway to the Emerald Chamber, and there he was supercharged with chaos energy like never before. Sparking with power, he darted away and led us straight to Xenophanes, who had just gotten the last Shadow Emerald on Angel Island. Together, we fought Xenophanes to the bitter end. One by one, the Shadow Emeralds fell out of his quills. Xenophanes finally fell to the ground, weak and beaten. I had waited so long to see this moment. Finally he had a taste of his own medicine. Taking him up in my fist, I knew exactly what to do with him. This is for all the humiliation you put me through. I flung Xenophanes into the Master Emerald, which Knuckles had brought up for this reason. Xenophanes was trapped inside of it, the perfect crystalline prison for my most terrible offender. Everyone around me rejoiced and returned to their living spaces, except for those who lived in the Dead Zone. Without a red ring to bring us back, we were all stranded on Planet Freedom. Professor Prower let us stay at his laboratory, but I had plans of my own. Those fools had left me with all 7 of the Shadow Emeralds, and the longer I held them, the more I thought about the old days when I had ruled the world. I could easily do it again. This planet was bigger and had more residents to torture. I already thought of how I would twist each zone to my liking. Oh, what a dream! And it was one within reach! With Xenophanes gone, I could do what I pleased, and no one could stop me in my tracks! Centipede caught wind of my plans, though, and tried stealing one of the emeralds from me by eating it. I was not above gutting him for it. It was by this time that everyone else knew I was up to no good. Majin came out to try and stop me, but even his infinite power couldn't match the boosted power of the Void. I was about to begin my conquest when something unexpected happened. I felt the presence of Xenophanes, and he was furious. He saw how I was using the emeralds to do something he swore not to do. He saw that I had the gall to go against him in his time of absence. Oh, he did not like it at all. He made an example of me. He stripped me of my confidence and humiliated me in front of every single member of the Dead Zone. I'm sorry for harming you and trying to take over Planet Freedom. I hope that you all can forgive me. And every single one of them left me. Even Majin, the one who sees good in everyone he meets, left me in the dust. I was exiled from the Dead Zone for an unsaid amount of time. My ankle was pulverized, and my power was so weak that I couldn't repair it. My nose was broken, my vessel was sore from being overworked. I was at the lowest of the low. There was only one person who helped me. Professor Prower. At first, I was confused and a bit resentful. Why was he helping me? I had done nothing good for him. If anything, I was a massive burden. But being with Prower had taught me a valuable lesson. Kindness does not need reason. He firmly believed that my life mattered just as much as any other being on this planet, and he was determined to help whether I liked it or not. I grew fond of Prower over these next few months, and we became very good friends. He replaced my foot with a prosthetic, but it hindered my walking to such a degree that I had to make myself a cane. I knew I would never hear the end of it, but it had to be done. It was about 6 months after my exile that I was allowed to return to the Dead Zone, and when I returned, I found that Horror Hills was gone completely. I had expected it, so I wasn't too upset. I was more focused on regaining the good word of my fellow residents. Centipede was the first to forgive me, and, as naive as the decision was, I was grateful for it. Over time, the other residents warmed up to me again. Centipede allowed me to stay with him in his dimension, called the Nowhere Zone. I was making good progress with everyone, but I had another issue creeping up on me. My powers were fading rapidly. I was once able to teleport with ease, but now it took at least 5 seconds to get from point A to point B. I was slower and clumsier thanks to my prosthetic foot and cane, and my energy for doing any form of activity was so little that I slept for most of the day out of necessity rather than boredom. This would only prove to be more of a problem when Xenophanes, how do I put it, went on vacation. Remember when Piracy got shocked by the mural underneath Hill of the Void? Well, that shock was actually a virus that contaminated Piracy's code. This gave way to a terrible being of binary and octal, the infamous Fatal Error. We had unknowingly encountered him when Xenophanes acquired the Shadow Master Emerald, but now he had decided it was a good time to come out in full force. He quickly began to corrupt and claim different zones, and even got a hold of Centipede, making him his slave like he did with Piracy. All the remaining residents and I came together in the Hill of the Void, and by the time we did this, Fatal Error had opened up a rift in the sky. We all knew he was up there, but we had no clue how to get up there. Tailsdoll tried flying up, but he was sent back down. I tried teleporting, but I was also sent back down. The only other way was getting Centipede's tail's kinesis to let us use his plane, which was in the Nowhere Zone. As everyone made for the Nowhere Zone, Fatal sent his puppets after us. I stayed behind to defend them with what little power I had left. It was a quick fight, and Fatal made a show of his abilities. I knew if I let him corrupt me, everyone in the Dead Zone would perish, so I did the one thing I could do. I destroyed myself. My conscience returned to the void, and for once in a long time I was at peace. The familiar feeling of being bodiless, formless, returned to me and rejuvenated my senses. It had been so long since I reconnected with the void, and now that I was immersed in its vastness once again, my strength and confidence was reinforced. I once again had the power to conquer worlds, conquer tyrants like Fatal Error, who threatened the lives of those I sought redemption from. No, I won't stand by and let this red buffoon take the victory. I am Lord X, the being born from nothing but pure darkness. I am what lurks in the darkest shadows and in the caves where the sun doesn't dare shine. I am the one that drug a human into the digital world. I am the one that seized control of the world that I found and made my own. I am more than capable of taking on this sorry excuse for a virus. After repairing my vessel within the void, I returned to the world of the living in search of my redemption.
What a pathetic being you are! Even with your infinite power, you could not defeat me!
Did you miss me? The fight was one for the history books. Fatal Error pulled out all the stops in order to defeat me, but with my newfound strength from the void, he was no match for me. I beat him until he was nothing but a mangled mess on the ground. And even then... You are finished, Fatal. You got the fight you wanted, and now you suffer for it. Be gone!
No! I must have the victory. I must win!
You fool! Xenophanes came back at this time, and, seeing what I had done, gave me an ounce of respect. I expected nothing more from him, for the respect of everyone else in the Dead Zone was enough for me. I had successfully redeemed myself in the eyes of the residents, who I am now honored to call my friends. After trapping Fatal Error in the Shadow Master Emerald to make sure he didn't return, Xenophanes reconstructed the Dead Zone after Fatal Error's recent escapades. I hardly gained any land from it, but all that mattered to me was that I had some amount of presence. Shortly after this, Xenophanes continued to leave the Dead Zone for extended periods of time. Peace had fallen on the Dead Zone, but this story is far from over. Another person would soon enter my life, and change it forever.